In a quiet leafy area of the Philippines resided a family known as the Maguads. As a family of four, they were kind and generous and deeply committed to helping those less fortunate. Their kindness led them to adopt an orphan girl who quickly became an integral part of their family. However, on one fateful day their lives were turned upside down. A crime scene so brutal it shocked an entire community. The only survivor was the orphan girl. Was it a coincidence or something much more sinister? The Maguads were a close-knit family who lived in Barangay Bagantape in the Philippines. They were known for their kindness, generosity and close bond. Cruz Maguad, the father, was a dedicated teacher and a deeply respected community leader. His wife Lovella Maguad served as the school principal. Together they raised two children, Louis 16 and Gwyn 18, who were the pride of the family. They were playful, energetic and embodied their parents' values, hard work, kindness and ambition. Gwyn, born in 2003, was an honour student. She had a radiant smile and cheerful personality. She was enrolled to go to nursing school as she wanted to help people. Louis, on the other hand, born in 2005, was full of life and curiosity. He loved the outdoors, reading and playing the guitar. His mischievous charm made him a fun person to be around. He aspired to become a lawyer. The Maguad's family resided in a secluded area surrounded by farmland, providing them with a quiet life marked by privacy and security. They were kind and generous and deeply committed to helping those less fortunate, often visiting hospitals and engaging in charity work. Their selflessness extended beyond their immediate community, as it was the siblings, Gwyn and Louis, who first proposed the idea of adoption. They had learnt about Janice, a 17-year-old live-in domestic worker and nanny for the Johnson family. Gwyn had developed a close bond with Janice through church, where Janice confided in her, longing for a stable and loving family. Deeply moved by her story, Gwyn and Louis approached their parents with the idea of adoption. To make Janice feel welcome, Louis even volunteered to give up his bedroom, opting to sleep on the couch so she could feel at home. By July 2021, the Maguads had officially adopted and welcomed Janice into their family. Despite her troubled past and being abandoned at the delicate age of 8, the Maguads were determined to give her the love and care she had never known. They treated her as one of their own, ensuring she felt valued and included. The family's bond grew stronger as they regularly attended church, went on family vacations, and even enrolled Janice in school for the first time in her life. With their unwavering support, they hoped to provide Janice with stability and opportunities she had been long deprived of. Although the family generally got along well, it was Gwyn and Janice who shared a very strong bond, treating each other like sisters and best friends. Their close connection was evident in their shared moments, frequently posting TikTok videos of themselves singing, dancing and laughing together. These playful and joyful interactions highlighted their deep connection and love for one another. On the morning of December the 10th, 2021, the Maguad family began their day following their usual routines. Around 7 a.m., Mr. Maguad left for work, having volunteered to take on additional tasks, whilst Mrs. Maguad went out to run errands. Their 3 children stayed home together, as it was a school holiday in observance of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights anniversary. At 2:48 that afternoon, Janice sent a frantic message to her adopted parents, claiming that 3 burglars had broken into their home, begging them to come back immediately. After receiving no immediate reply, she posted a desperate plea for help on social media, translating, "Guys, help me please. I am in the house. I don't want to die. I am in my room hiding." This was followed up by a second post, "Please help." At 3 p.m., just minutes later, Mr. Maguad's colleague burst into the classroom holding his phone with urgency in his voice. He referenced Janice's social media post saying, "Your house has been broken into. You should go home right away." Mr. Maguad's heart sank as he read the messages detailing the horrific situation unfolding at home. Overwhelmed with panic and fear for his children, he left work without hesitation. When he arrived at the house, his anxiety deepened. Whilst rushing, he had left his keys back at the school, and the front door was locked. As he stood outside, he desperately called out his children's names. Gwyn, Lewis, Janice. The silence that followed was deafening, amplifying his growing dread. Determined to get inside, Mr. Maguad rushed to the back of the house and found the back door unlocked. Pushing it open, he stepped into the house, bracing himself for what's to come. As he entered, he was met with the signs of a violent struggle. The living room was in complete disarray, furniture overturned and shards of broken vases and ornaments littered on the floor. His heart raced as he took in the chaos. Suddenly, his eyes were drawn to the floor, blood everywhere, soaking the tiles. There, lying motionless in the pool of blood, was his son Lewis. He had been badly beaten and repeatedly stabbed, his body battered beyond recognition. Both his hands and feet were bound, a towel cruelly shoved in his mouth, and his entire body riddled with wounds. His father froze in sheer shock, unable to fully comprehend the brutality of what he was seeing. Beside his son's lifeless body lay several blood-stained weapons, a knife, a hammer, machete, and a baseball bat, each a horrifying testament to the savagery of the attack. Mr. Maguad's horror grew further as he turned and saw his daughter Gwyn also lying lifeless in the accompanying room. Her body was viciously mutilated. Her face was unrecognizable, her ear severed, and her body also riddled with deep stab wounds. Her limbs and torso, like her brother's, bore numerous slash wounds, some so severe that the flesh was mangled, exposing parts of her neck and internal tissues. Her arms and hands were covered in defensive wounds, a testament to a desperate attempt to protect herself during the assault. The level of violence and cruelty inflicted on both siblings was beyond comprehension, leaving no doubt they had endured unimaginable pain and suffering in their final moments. Despite Mr. Maguad's overwhelming grief and shock, his thoughts turned to his adopted daughter Janice, who had sent messages begging for help. He rushed to her room, but found that the door was locked from inside. Desperately he banged on the door, shouting her name, his voice trembling with panic and desperation. After what felt like an eternity, Janice finally responded. Her voice trembled as she called out from behind the door. Moments later, she unlocked it. Mr. Maguad found her physically unharmed, sitting on the floor with her hair and clothes bare. She was very shaken and distressed. When Mr. Maguad asked what had happened, Janice explained that 3 masked burglars had broken into the house. She told him she had been in her room when she heard Lewis' screams followed by Gwyn's cries. Terrified, she said she locked herself in her room, hid under the bed and stayed there, too afraid to come out. Janice also shared that after the screaming stopped, she took a shower to calm herself, unable to summon the courage to leave the room. A truly harrowing ordeal. In his shocked and devastated state, Mr. Maguad contacted the police and his wife, whilst trying to make sense of the horrifying scene unfolding around him. As the police arrived and searched the house and its surroundings, they discovered a blood-stained short-sleeved shirt discarded outside the house. A few hundred meters further, they uncovered a plastic bag containing bloodied pants belonging to a male inside the home. The carnage was even more shocking. Investigators found an array of weapons. The walls and floors were also stained with blood and small pieces of flesh. The large pool of blood varied in condition, from dried and coagulated to still liquid, suggesting the murders had occurred relatively recently. Police turned to Janice, the only witness, who narrowly escaped the attack unscathed. However, as they delved into her account, significant inconsistencies began to emerge. Janice stated that Lewis was attacked first, but forensic analysis of the blood condition and patterns on the floor contradicted this. Furthermore, investigators estimate that the siblings' time of death was approximately 50 minutes to an hour before authorities arrived, casting doubt on the timeline she provided. Janice also claimed to have hidden under the bed throughout the attack, yet her room was ransacked, and despite the chaos, she managed to use her phone undetected, raising questions about how she successfully avoided detection. The discrepancies in the story led investigators to scrutinize her accounts further. There was no evidence of forced entry. Police retrieved fingerprints from surfaces around the house, blood samples and strands of hair near the victims' bodies. Officers also located blood droplets in Janice's room, an ID card belonging to an unknown young male, adding a new layer to the case. Forensic analysis later confirmed that the baseball bat, one of the weapons used in the attack, was covered with Janice's fingerprints. Lastly, the police received a critical statement from a witness, delivery driver, who had arrived at the house approximately 18 minutes after the incident. The driver recalled calling out to the occupants, announcing that he had a parcel, but received no response. He continued knocking and repeating his announcement when he saw a woman peering at him through a partial open door. Before he could say anything further, the woman abruptly walked away, leaving him puzzled. That woman was no other than Janice. On December the 10th, 2021, Janice was brought in for questioning, where she immediately confessed to her involvement in the brutal murders. She told investigators she had enlisted the help of two boys from the church her family attended, one of whom had already been identified through ID found in her room. The other accomplice remains unnamed due to his young age. Facebook messages revealed the plan had been in motion for 10 days. Janice had been driven by jealousy. She grew to resent her adoptive siblings, particularly Gwyn, the very people who had welcomed her into their home. In a tragic turn of events, Janice admitted that during the attack, Gwyn initially escaped from the home, potentially saving herself. However, Gwyn returned to help her brother and Janice, unaware that Janice was complicit in the violence. In her confession, Janice revealed that she was the one who stabbed Gwyn, who in her final moments tearfully pleaded, "Why? What did I do wrong? I love you." This heartbreaking detail sent shockwaves through the community, leaving many grappling with the magnitude of the betrayal and loss. In early 2022, Janice was formally charged with 2 counts of parricide, a crime under Philippines law that applies when a person kills a close relative, including adoptive siblings. During the trial, the defense argued mitigating factors such as Janice's troubled past and emotional instability in an attempt to explain her actions. However, the overwhelming evidence and the sheer brutality of the crime resulted in her and her accomplice being sentenced 32 years in prison each, without the possibility of parole. The exact charge brought against the younger accomplice remains unclear. Police also made another shock discovery. Janice was not an orphan as the Maguads believed. She had biological parents and 2 siblings, raising questions about why she lied. It remains unclear whether Janice left her family voluntarily or if they abandoned her. But it's reported that her father was a heavy drug user and her family was very poor, often resulting to eating scraps. When her biological mother Michelle learned of her daughter's actions, she was horrified and expressed deep remorse to Mr. and Mrs. Maguad. Mrs. Maguad told her, "Our lives stopped. Sometimes we are motionless. It is tiresome to stand. They are our world." In a poignant moment, the Maguads hugged Michelle and assured her that it was not her fault. The Maguad siblings were laid to rest in their hometown in the Philippines, their white coffins adorned with flowers and heartfelt tributes poured in from a grieving community. They were buried side by side, symbolizing the inseparable bond the siblings shared in life and in death. For Mr. and Mrs. Maguad, the pain of their loss is indescribable. Not only had they lost their beloved biological children, but they were also deeply betrayed by someone they had welcomed into their home with love and trust. In their own words, they describe the tragedy as the ugliest incident that happened during the celebration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights anniversary. Despite their immense grief, the Maguad parents continue to fight each day to honor their children's memory, ensuring their legacy of kindness, love and ambition lives on.